Anyway, the kind of mishmash that's coming out of thinking in our culture today reminds me of scrambled brains. And so I want to talk about a couple of things that our culture assumes to be true. Like an axiom. The first one is that food is food is food is food. Now, there are corollaries to that. One corollary is that food should be cheap. Another corollary is that that people who pay extra for what they think is better food are elitists. You ever heard that? This is really just an elitist movement. Well, these are kind of cultural axioms right now in our culture. So let's just deal with that a little bit. That first of all, that food is food is food. You know, there are huge differences in food. One of the last 2 to 3 years, Mother Earth News actually commissioned. This is the aggressive stance. More magazines need to do this, where they got 12 of us around the country that were doing pastured eggs and sent the eggs off to a lab in Oregon or Washington State somewhere and reported the results compared to the regular U.S. duh label. And I can remember one right now. I mean, folic acid, I think, on our eggs was, the U.S. duh was 47 micrograms per egg, and we were 1,100 micrograms of folic acid per egg. You know, and of course, the title on the article was, you know, only a fool would say there's no difference. I remember very well when we had a guy. He was courting me to come on as a six-figure partner in this big pastured poultry operation. I turned him down. I said, I don't have time for a six-figure income. I got too much stuff to do. But it's since gone bankrupt, so it was a wise decision. You got to be careful of people that are going to, you know, go let the world on fire. Most of us learned that even the most charismatic people can only get a little bit of smoke, you know. But Dad always said, beware of people born with a big auger. You know, we're going to go, you know, make it big and, all right. Anyway, so he wanted us to send our chickens down to Virginia Tech Food Sciences Lab for a study on fat profile, polyunsaturated, saturated, and unsaturated, and full saturated fats. And so the lab wouldn't do a test for us. The post hole digger degree guy, the PhD with a post hole digger degree, or pilot higher and deeper, you know, whatever. The guy running the lab, you know, the credentialed expert running the lab said, oh, you know, it's a waste of time to do that test. Chicken's chicken is chicken. Doesn't make any difference. Well, we finally dangled several $100s in his nose. He said, all right, I'll run the test. A month later, we went down to pick up the test. He handed it to us in an envelope. And he handed it to us and said, see, I told you there wouldn't be any difference. We opened up the envelope, looked at the computer printout, and the differences were so profound that the needles wouldn't even stay on the paper. See, we've got this notion because, you know, if the word ever gets out that compost-grown tomatoes are really more nutritious than chemical-grown tomatoes, or that our eggs have 10 times the nutrition of regular, you know, factory fecal concentration camp eggs. See, the industry is scared to death of that kind of information, because when people see that kind of information, they make changes. My favorite one was one year we had a customer come and tell us that her husband said there's no difference in food, and she found out about us. She came out and got some meat, went home, and she had this little Pomeranian Pomeranian dog. and she had a Himalayan cat. And these two pets had quit eating any meat that she brought back from the supermarket. You know, she would used to, you know, drop little pits of them on the kitchen floor, and they'd come along and lick it up. You know, we're back to, you know, King Arthur and the Night Table, you know, and drop it on the floor, and the pets would lick it up. Well, they got to where they wouldn't eat anything. And so anyway, she came out to our farm. She got some stuff. She went home, and so she's sitting there, and while she's starting to cook dinner, I don't know, meatloaf or something. Of course, her husband gave her a terrible time driving out, you know, into the country, out in the end of a dirt road. You know, we don't live on a main drag. In case you, some of you have been there, you know, we live out on the end of a dirt road where the only time you have to lock your car is in late August to keep the neighbors from putting runaway zucchini squash in it. So she's fixing dinner here, and she opens this package of ground beef, and here comes the cat and the dog, and they come up and they start scratching her legs and says, "What's the matter with you guys? You know, you haven't eaten any of this for 4 years. What are you carrying on about?" Finally, they worried her to death. She finally dropped a piece, and both of them just went right to it, gobbled it up, and came scratching for more. At that point, her husband came down. He was watching the football game or something upstairs. He came down the stairs to the kitchen, saw what the animals were doing, and said, "I don't know, wherever you went and got that, that's the only thing I'm going to eat for the rest of my life." See, most people trust their pets way more than anybody else. So I always tell people, don't take my word for it, do the cat test. So about a month after that, there was a health fair in our community, health fair area, and they asked us to come and, you know, do an exhibit. So we went down to do an exhibit. We said, you know, how can we soundbite this? How can we present this? So we went to the store. We bought, you know, a Tyson factory farm chicken. We bought, you know, some regular supermarket feedlot beef, and we cooked these things up and took them down there, put them on the table, you know, where you could see, like, you know how when you cook a chicken in the broth, you pull the broth off and you put it in the refrigerator in a cup, and you've got the clear stuff that settles to the bottom, and then the saturated fat comes to the top and gets kind of hard on top. Well, in a regular supermarket chicken, that fat will get as hard as paraffin, and it's like paraffin. Ours stays softer than Crisco, softer than vegetable oil, because it's polyunsaturated rather than saturated. Anyway, so you know, we had some of these tests out there, and one of the things we did was we got a pound of ground beef, and we cooked 4 hamburgers, and we put them on the plate to show the shrinkage and the grease loss from the, you know, supermarket one compared to ours. And, you know, we talk about price, and what the point is that if you're losing 30% less in cooking, you know, loss, you got more nutrition, right? So we did that. Well, this stuff was sitting out on the table all day. It was a hot day. We came home. We said, well, what do we do with this, you know? And so we didn't want to eat it. I mean, even we're not that stupid. And so said, hey, let's do the cat test like that customer told us about. We have 4 cats. That's our rodent control. And so I went out the back step, called the cats, you know, and I put the 4 from the store down on the one plate, and I put the other 4, ours, down on the other plate, and I made sure that I put the store plate, you know, first. They'd come to that one first. They come running across the yard. They come to that one. They sniff over it, walk past it, go to ours, devour it up, and eat the paper plate before they even, and they won't even touch the others. So I tell people, don't believe me. I mean, I have a vested interest. I want you to buy our stuff. But so trust your pets. Trust your pets. You know, they don't watch TV, and they don't hear, Geico ads and Twinkies ads and all that stuff, or they don't understand them, I guess. So maybe some of you would say they do. I don't know. But anyway, this food is different. And good food should be paid for, because we're not externalizing our costs. We're not stinking up the neighborhood. We're creating farms that are aromatically and aesthetically, sensually romantic. Now, there are some people that will say, well, I just can't afford this. Whenever anybody, now at the risk of being very politically incorrect, whenever somebody says, I can't afford this food, you know what I want to do? I'm going to say, quick, let's get in your car, take me to your house. And here's what we're not going to see in your house. We're not going to see soda. We're not going to see pizza boxes. We're not going to see lottery ticket stubs. We're not going to see tobacco, alcohol, $100 jeans with holes already in the knees. We're not going to see a flat screen TV, iPod, CDs, or Disney vacation stubs. We're not going to see country club, we're not going to see golf clubs. Is everybody with me here? Yeah. Now, we can sit here all day, and in absolute charity, trust me, I know there are some people that are having trouble. But the fact is, we can spend the rest of the day picking lint out of our belly button trying to figure out what to do with those 2% of people that are really in financial trouble and completely neglect the intransigence, negligence, and abdication of responsibility for our own health by the 98% that could do something. And if everyone who could would, it would so fundamentally change the game, we can't even imagine what the peripheries would look like. So let's quit sitting here, analysis by paralysis, or paralysis by analysis on the fringes of the thing, and say, everybody just get with it and do what you know is supposed to, you ought to do. It's really a matter of priorities. One of the best things you can do on handling price is to buy unprocessed. You know, you could go down to the store and buy Lay's potato chips for $5.99 a pound, or you can go and buy an heirloom variety potato for $2 a pound, and go home and use your Cuisinart and your slicer dicer, your whatever stuff, and make your own potato chips for $2.50 a pound. Okay? It's just a matter of priorities. And the people that say they don't have time, oh my. The first thing you need to do when you start thinking about being creative, innovative, and changing the planet is to take your deer rifle and your television I think y'all got the punchline on that one already. And I wouldn't be true to myself if I didn't say one of the biggest issues in why our food is more expensive is not necessarily production costs. It is the prejudicial impact of non-scalable food police regulations. It's always, anybody who's ever tried to do a little home cottage base, like make quiche or cheese or egg noodles or, any kind of, butcher rabbits and sell them, chickens and sell them, or smoke a ham, anybody who's ever tried to do this can appreciate that if the government says you have to have a special $10,000 thermometer to do charcuterie, it's one thing to have that thermometer if you're doing a tractor trailer load. It's quite another to have that thermometer if you're doing a 5-gallon bucket. And that's the unscalability of food regulations. So what I would like to see, actually a constitutional amendment to guarantee every American the freedom of food choice, like we have the freedom to worship and own guns. Last night I was in a 5-star restaurant in Cape May, New Jersey. I thought they'd never get me back so I could go to bed to get up at 3:45 to get to my flight in Philadelphia.